If you do outreach to expect something back, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You got to do it with no strings attached, literally. You're going to get frustrated and you're going to go, why are we doing this? It ain't benefiting us. Well, that's the wrong word right there. Anytime we say it's not benefiting us, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. I'm Steve Mcbrian, and I pastor Oswego Assembly of God here in Oswego, Kansas. Oswego is your typical rural town. There's one grocery store, there's a post office. Our motto and our vision for the church was to grow upwards and serve outwards. And we've been teaching that from day one, that's who we are. Ephesians 2:10 is our passage that we've used. We are God's workmanship created in Christ Jesus to do good works. And our people hadn't really never heard that message. They knew they were supposed to give their heart to Jesus and do good works, but they didn't know how that all worked together. So we came in with that mindset of evangelistic and reach our community, and it wasn't just about us reaching the whole town for our church, but just reaching people in general for the gospel. Growing upwards meant we're going to learn God's word, we're going to be discipled, we're going to be faithful to church, attendance, all of those things. But at the same time, we weren't going to just learn it and keep it, but we were going to serve and give that out. You receive from God to give. You don't receive to hold on to. And so everything that we do is about getting and then giving out. Over the years, it went from serving out or growing upwards to serving outwards. Now we've actually tied them together. So it's growing upwards, serving outwards together. And we're trying to do 4 things as well, and that's to build meaningful relationships, to impact our community, and just, true worship and serve each other. And so that's kind of our vision. Community outreach has been the biggest thing for us from day one. We really reached out to the schools first, because in any rural setting, the school is always the hub. It's always the life support of the community. If you've got a good, healthy school, you're going to have lots of folks, because they're going to be at the ball games, they're going to be at all the events. And so we had inroads right off the bat with the football team, and we fed them for homecoming. And the mamas really loved that, because up till that point, the moms were always responsible for putting the meal together to feed the team before the games. So when we came in and did homecoming, that built inroads with the head coach at the time, and he allowed us to do that. And because of a favor that he had had with another football coach or a youth pastor years ago, and had a great relationship, he trusted us. And so we're actually building on the shoulders of a youth pastor 20-something years ago that built a connection with this football coach. And so he trusted us. And so we began there, and from that it went to doing every home game. And then from that, they invited me to be on the sidelines. And then from that, we went to coaching. And so now we're heavily in the school. We're meeting needs every time there's a need, even in the wintertime. They're always needing Kleenex at the high school, because that's one thing that's not asked of from high school students, is bring Kleenex in your school supplies. They do it at the elementary, but not the high school. And so teachers would literally have to put rolls of toilet paper on their desk for a kid to wipe his nose, So we started doing things like that. We've done head lice kits, we've done clothing, we've done tennis shoes for PE. We've done actual shoes for the whole school. We've done socks. And all of those things have just been loving on our school so much that's begun to grab some. One of our couples in our church had seen us for about 7 years, loving the school. I'd coached their boys, and they just knew they needed to get back in church with the family. And he sent me a message one day and said, "Hey, would it be okay if we came to your church Sunday? We want to get back in church." And I'm like, absolutely. And they've been here ever since, and they're a great asset to our church. Our current children's ministry leader is a byproduct of that as well. A young man that I coached, he was in our schools, it was part of our youth group, just through those connections. Now, these years later, he's married. Him and his wife are leading our children's ministry, which is all direct from the schools and being in the schools. I can remember him as a 7th and 8th grader asking me, "Pastor, you gonna come and watch us play a ball game tomorrow?" And so now here he is leading our children's ministry with his newlywed wife. So it's been pretty cool. We've bought basketball shoes for players. We've bought cleats for football players. We've bought tools for a young man that was going to Votech Just couldn't afford the tools to have, for the meters to the tools, everything. We've done all those things. We've found out students that were living on their own. They're a senior in high school, family runs off, moves, they stay here, living by themselves. We went and bought groceries and give to them once a week just to get them by. We've paid for different kids to have college credit for their schools, because some of the classes they can take, they call a dual credit, and they can get college hours for that. We'll cover that even sometimes for them if they need it. Because of our relationship that we'd already built with the school, this last year when COVID broke out, the school had to shut down, but they still already had all of their food to feed the kids for lunch and breakfast. And so the governor had allowed all the schools to go ahead and provide those meals. Well, our school is on the far east side of town, and so they wanted a way to distribute the food to the kids that would be at home that wouldn't have a ride. And so I reached out to our superintendent and asked if there was anything we could do. I had no idea what they were going to do, but I said if there was anything that we could do, we would love to help. And so he invited us to the meeting, he put us into the plan, and so our school said, we want you to come and get trained. So we took our people, they got trained real quick, and then we were able to legally distribute food from our facilities in our Family Life Center. So from March of 2020 till June, when the food program ended, 5 days a week, except for holidays, we had our staff and our people in our church, some of them teachers, were able to feed the kids breakfast and lunch, and we did anywhere from 60 to 70 meals every day, 5 days a week, to feed our kids in our community. And the superintendent told me later, he said, I'm so glad. He said, I was looking for a church or someone to step up and would be willing to help us with this unprecedented time they were facing. We're always trying to find ways to love the school, and that love has been returned to us by favor in the community, because the people in the community see us loving the schools and they think, okay, they're not about themselves, they're about our kids and our families. The school has been the best thing we've ever done. If I had a pastor to talk to for an hour and just tell him what all he really needs to focus on, a young pastor especially, or they're new to rural, the biggest thing they need to buy into is getting into the school. Whatever bridge they can find to connect with the school, just loving the school and not stopping that. The biggest thing, a lot of people want to do it and they do it one time. And the school's like, oh, that's great. Everybody else does that too. Thank you. But the consistency of doing it every year when they go back to school, having those gifts for the teachers, every year feeding those football players, every year feeding the basketball team, every year giving the head lice kits, every year taking the Kleenex, every year you have to do it consistently, because everybody will do it for a moment. We always have teacher appreciation in May. Everybody in the community is going to do that. But who's going to do it when it's not teacher appreciation? Who's going to do it when the teachers are having troubles, they're diagnosed with cancer or their child is sick? That's the consistency they know and see, they'll reach to you. So you've got to get into the school, whether it's just going to the games and watching kids, whether it's just meeting needs of teachers, whatever you can do, that's what you need to do. You don't need a vision from God to get that, because in the rural America, the school is the life support. If there's no school, there's no town. As long as there's a school there, there's life. Go and find the life and mingle in it. And you'd be surprised how much you can get done. This is what I tell our people. There is something that's not being done. We don't need to go do what somebody else is doing. Let's go find what somebody else is not doing in the school, and let's do that. And then once we do it, now we say we're going to commit to doing it from now on. So that's huge for our pastors and to understand. In rural America, go be a part of the schools. The other thing is with that, you have to stay. You gotta stay. And I tell pastors a lot too, is this: wherever you think that it is you need to go and you feel like to achieve or to reach a level, God can do it right wherever you're at. Because it's the principles, the leadership principles that you put into place will work in any setting. You just have to stay committed long enough to do it. And so being in the school and leading all that just bleeds right over into the community. And so that gives you all the leverage that you need to just share with one person about Christ.